in 2007, I was able to go on a Canadian battlefield tour. It was led by eminent historian Terry Kopp. And it had a great impact on me, as it has with a lot of people. When I came back from that, I wanted to do something special around that. And so I began to engage students in primary document research, right, which led to then doing the stories, researching the stories of actual people from our area, from southern New Brunswick. And one of the students said along the way, listen, why don't we write the key moments of Canadian history while we do this? So we began to do that. And we started with those who were killed overseas. And then one of the students said, well, why don't we do the survivors as well? World War I, World War II, men, women. And so that set us on a path to do interviews with family members, with veterans, to do primary document research, to delve into secondary sources over a 10-year period. It wasn't a year, it was a 10-year period, maybe 10 to 12 years actually. And we, the end product were 5 books, and 3 of the books were published, and one ended up being sold at Indigo in St. John. So my students became published authors before they'd finished high school. When that particular cohort of students graduated, the brothers and sisters came in, they said, we've heard about this project, so it led to another set of research, end product being a book, and then another and another. So we built kind of a program. It was a program of historical thinking and kind of in-depth research. Everything that I've tried to do in teaching history has been centered around the concept of authenticity. Figured we can mirror the work of the historian in the classroom. Students can become historians. So one moment we had students who had interviewed, we'd gone in and done actual interviews in kitchens and living rooms and so on, excavated attics and basements. And during one interview, we learned about a man named Charlie Ray. And Charlie Ray told us his story. He actually watched a friend die on the kind of the front of a tank one night. So he's telling this story, and one of the students who was in the living room said, Mr. Perry, that sounds like the person who I researched. So what we discovered was Charlie Ray and this man who had died, they were friends. But they didn't know, our students didn't know, and this person's surviving daughter didn't know that Charlie Ray lived in the same city. So what the students did was that they introduced Charlie Ray and Murray's daughter, right? And for each Remembrance Day for another 8 years, they would meet, have tea, and then go to the Remembrance Day ceremony in St. John together. So for me, that encapsulates history as that. If history is just the events of World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and so on, it's really not education. It's really not where the passion lies. We need to use that as the backdrop and then find our way to the human stories. And that's what the kids did. Students' abilities in general, research is clear on this, their ability to online reason, to find their way to credible sources, to determine what is credible and what is not, it's challenging for them, right? Their ability to do this is not great. The research is clear on that. So I see history teachers as, to a degree, the guardians of the human stories. We see the rise of, and I don't want to be overly serious, but I need to answer the question. We see a rise in anti-Semitism, for example. Well, history teachers can take the lead in making sure that we teach the skills and the content to get students to a place where they can evaluate sources to find themselves close to as accurate a story as possible. If we don't do that and take the lead on that, it's at the peril of our civic health. There aren't too many disciplines in the school experience that really authentically, again, problem solve. There's a great kind of platform to think critically, to actually teach critical thinking skills, to do the analysis, to compare and contrast concepts, to cross-reference, to triangulate information, right? There aren't too many disciplines where all of those critical thinking skills are kind of home, right? So without a strong history program and people that I think this way, and there's a huge community of people who think this way now, thinking historically, not just teaching history, but knowing how history comes to us, knowing who controls it, what biases we can detect within it, all those skills. Without the discipline, we lose all of that. We lose a great deal of that. I shouldn't kind of overdo it and say that, we are everything, but history educators play a huge role. And as I said, They can be leaders in kind of developing citizens that are civically competent, knowledgeable and skilled, and engaged.